Thanks, Nicole. Ohio Governor Mike DeWine is speaking out in support of a new bill that would ban the use of cell phones in schools. Senate Bill 158 would do just that. DeWine says cell phone notifications not only distract students from their studies, but could also negatively impact their mental health and social skills, citing social media. So here with more on whether a cell phone ban could work in schools is Boardman Local Schools Superintendent Chris Neifer. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So let's talk about these phones. How distracting have cell phones become in recent years with the rise of, Instagram, Snapchat? Those have been around for a while, but also TikTok, all the social media apps. Have you and teachers been experiencing problems with phones in schools?
Sure. I mean, it's an issue. If you look at some of the research that's out there, the average teenager gets over 200 notifications a day from their cell phone. So them being a distraction is certainly an issue. We've done a pretty good job in most schools of putting policies and guidelines in place to help to reduce those things. And we also kind of teach the kids that gradual release of responsibility. As adults, I don't know about you, but my cell phone goes off constantly.
Oh, yeah.
So teaching kids that is also part of the process.
Right. And, with kids having their phones in schools right now, has it been enough of a distraction in classroom to have an impact on their performance or test scores?
For some kids, just like adults, some kids adjust to that self-control piece better than others. Within our district and within most, as we get older, our K-6 kids aren't allowed to have phones. Our 7th and 8th graders have to keep them in their locker, so they have them for after-school extracurricular events. And then we kind of have some individual teacher discretion at the high school to kind of teach the kids how to utilize those better.
Okay. And you were talking about some of the restrictions, but, with kids having access to their phones, what about those emergency situations that, you might be fearing of? Maybe a fire alarm goes off and it's not a drill. Or something, God forbid, would happen in your school district. Do you see any benefit of kids having access to their phones then, or do you feel like they could get in the way?
Actually, the ban would help in those types of situations. And not that we don't want parents to have information and kids to feel comfortable to communicate, but there are protocols put together in schools, and we don't want parents in those situations rushing up to the building, and we've got plenty of ways to communicate within the building, so we don't necessarily need the kids to have those cell phones. So from that standpoint, the ban could actually be helpful.
Okay, and if this bill were to pass and Governor DeWine would sign off on it, how do you think this would work? Would you collect phones at the beginning of the day? Have like some classrooms I've seen have those little cubbies where kids
Sure.
put their phones?
Our hope would be, as we've talked a little bit more about this, as we've kind of moved this way gradually with the bill that was passed last year, the beginning of this process would be for kids to keep them put away, right, in their lockers, in their bags, and not have to deal with us having to take them. So that would be where we would start. And then from there, we would have to look at some other opportunities or processes to hold phones for those kids who struggle with the self-control issues.
Gotcha. And since this would be a state law at that point, are you concerned about any consequences if your school might not be able to fully enforce that? I mean, you're dealing with hundreds and hundreds of kids in a day, all with cell phones. Something I'm sure might slip down again where a kid has their phone and isn't supposed to.
Yeah, I think we'll be able to make the transition. I mean, we're pretty resilient in schools, and we adapt. So like I said earlier, some students may struggle a little bit more than others, and we certainly would put rules in place to deal with those situations.
All right, and quickly before we wrap, any other messages for parents on the use of cell phones in schools, or any concerns that they might have?
Yeah, I mean, we deal with those on an individual basis. There are always those parents who want to be able to communicate with their kids throughout the course of the day. We even use them, our remind messages for coaches who cancel and change practices. And so it's just that idea of we'll put protocols in place to make sure that if students need to get information, that we'll make sure they can get those.
All right, Superintendent Neifer, thank you so much for coming in and talking to me about this.
Sure, thank you.